So, as I said, my name is Helen Beal. I'm the head of DevOps here at Ranger4, and today I wanted to talk with you about how to get DevOps certified. So, on the agenda, we'll think a little bit about why DevOps and what DevOps really is and where it's come from and why people are talking about it. And then we'll talk about where this training has come from specifically and the roles that the DevOps Institute and Ranger4 play in certifying people in DevOps. We'll delve into the course itself in a bit more detail and talk about the process for getting your certification, and then who should be doing this course and why, and then finally how to book yourself on the course. So first of all, this is a chart from Google Trends on the search term DevOps, and what we're really saying here is we can see a massive increase in the interest in the term of DevOps. So lots of people struggle really to define what DevOps is. We talk about conflict and things like that and the collaboration between development operations, but in some respects I find it a little bit more useful to talk about what's different about DevOps and why the term has had or has become so current and has so much currency in today's marketplace, as we've just seen in the Google Trends chart. So I think there's sort of three main areas where that make DevOps different and make the term relevant and have given it that currency that I was just talking about. One is the strategic importance of digital transformation or digitization in all businesses today. So the increasing use of the internet by consumers and businesses to trade and choose products and do business has become critically important to all organisations and important for their survival and their ability to continue doing business and thrive in their particular environments. So what that means is that the businesses have been putting lots of pressure on developers to innovate more and make more changes and do things more quickly. So on one side of the IT department, we have this pressure to change. And then on the other side, we have the IT operations people who have been building and running infrastructures for quite some time, often many decades. The infrastructures have become quite complicated, quite fragile, and these people have become quite risk averse. The other thing that's happened is that these enterprises have grown up with an organisational model that is quite siloed. So we very frequently see developers all reporting into the head of development and all of the IT infrastructure type people, InfoSec and support and release management people reporting into the head of ops, and then those two reporting into the overall IT director. So their reporting lines are segregated, and then we also often see them separated physically in the environments where they work. So I've been to customers where you walk along a corridor and on one side on the left you've got developers, on the right you've got operations. I've been to other customers where they've been on different floors. I have another customer in Denmark who they're in the same town but in different buildings a kilometre apart. So the conflict that we see that caused by the need to innovate faster to keep up with the digital pressures to compete, and the conflict to keep these systems stable, manifests itself in a number of ways. So we hear kind of lots of things from people like operations take far too long to provide us with environments. I can't believe development are asking to have admin access to these production machines. We've got bottlenecks in our release process. We don't know why that machine has broken or that application has broken, and we're all pointing fingers at each other. So we hear lots of this conflict. So this is really what DevOps is here to try and resolve. Another thing that I think has happened that has given DevOps this great currency that it has is around the other processes that we've been working with in the IT market over the past decade or more, in the case of Agile in particular. So Agile and ITSM and ITIL in particular are processes that DevOps wraps around and extends and connects. And finally, the third thing that I think that is different about now and makes DevOps a current term is the technology that's become available in the last 4 or 5 years. So lots of the open source platforms, lots of the automation platforms. So I'm thinking of Puppet, Chef, Urban Code, things like that, Jenkins, and particularly some of the business transaction-based monitoring software from people like AppDynamics and New Relic. So DevOps has got this great currency. Lots of customers we're working with are figuring out what it means to them, how they can be more DevOps-like, what that means in terms of their business benefits, what it means to have an increased cadence of change. what it means to be able to track an idea from the aha moment to the ka-ching moment, from the conception of the idea through to the point where it's actually running in the market and measuring the value that it's delivering when it's running there live. So we do lots and lots of work with lots of different customers around DevOps transformations, and that manifests itself in lots of different ways. So we do lots of kind of DevOps maturity assessments or discovery work where we analyse where a company's current state is, baseline lots of metrics around various different DevOps attributes, cultural as well as technical. And we produce a roadmap based on their desired future state and a journey that they can go along to try and make those improvements. We do lots of things like DevOps toolchain reviews. We do DevOps transformations as a result often of the assessments and the maturity discoveries that we do. And part of those transformations is always some kind of organisational change going on where we need to spread the word about DevOps through the organisation. We need to create pockets of expertise and evangelism to help those messages proliferate through the organisation. So one thing our customers had been asking us for a long time was if we had any DevOps training. So we got involved with the DevOps Institute. The DevOps Institute was started by Alan Schimmel, who runs the website devops.com, along with Jane Groll and Lisa Schwartz, who run the ITSM Academy. So the DevOps Institute has some really solid DevOps knowledge behind it, and some people that have a very solid background in delivering, building and delivering and developing training courses. So I've mentioned Alan and Jane and Lisa as founders of the DOI. The DOI also has a board of regents. This is their webpage here that I've got on the screen now. You can see that on the bottom left there, that's a very famous DevOps face. That's Gene Kim. So he's on the board of regents. There's lots of other very well-respected people on there, and also myself, which is nice, and also some of our customers. So Jonathan Fletcher from Hiscox recently joined the board with our recommendation, and he's working on some next generation content with Jane and Lisa at the moment that I'll talk about a bit later. So the course itself, so the DevOps Foundation course that I wanted to focus in on today, it's a 16-hour course. So that could be 2 days, or it could be broken across 4 half days, or however you want, really. We tend to prefer to do it in a 2-day block. We can do that on-site or remote or blended. So we could do a day remotely with you and then a day on-site, for example. Again, our personal preference is to deliver it on-site. It's just great to be in a room together, and it's much more relaxed, and you can kind of see the whites of each other's eyes, and you get into more of a debate, I think. When we run public schedule ones in particular, there's a lot of information sharing that goes on between the various learners in the room. There's often 2 or 3 from the same company, but across the room there'll be maybe 6 or 7 different companies that all have different experiences and different levels of knowledge to share with the others. I mentioned that was a public schedule course. We also deliver this course on site in a custom manner, so we can deliver it to one organisation within your organisation, come to your site, use your training room, and deliver it to groups of people. We try and limit the class to no more than 20. It just gets a bit unwieldy for the trainers at that point. But of course, if you've got 60 people you want training, we can just do it 3 times. That's not a problem. The cost is £1,000 per student plus VAT if you're in the UK, and that cost is for the 2 days and includes the courseware and the certification also. We have our own training rooms and access to training rooms through our partners. So ours are in the Royal Exchange in London. So if you were having a custom course for your own organisation, but you perhaps wanted to get everyone off site, we could also manage that for you. So this is the very high level overview of what is in the course itself. I often say this is not a technical course. It does have some very technical conversations and topics in it. It's not technical in the extent that you don't need to bring a laptop and code things or use any software during the course. We do try and keep it as workshoppy as possible, so try and avoid kind of death by PowerPoint. but actually having some interesting exercises and thought-provoking discussions going on about the concepts that we're covering. So you can see that we kick off the first day with some introductions and learn about who everyone is in the room and why they're there and what they're hoping to gain from the course. And then a reminder of what we're going to be covering in the course and why we're doing a DevOps course in the first place. And then we'll have a look at why DevOps is becoming such a big thing, or has become such a big thing. So kind of what we just covered a few moments ago, but in a bit more detail. And then definitions around DevOps. So is it culture? Is it automation? Is it both of those things? Why does it mean different things to different people? What does it mean to you? Then we look at the principles around DevOps, so that CALMS, that many of you will probably be familiar with, that are on the call today. So CALMS, the John Willis's acronym for DevOps, so culture, automation, lean, metrics and sharing. So we look at all of those things in more detail and how to deliver value justifications and things like that. And then in the afternoon, we delve deeper into DevOps' relationship with other frameworks. So I've already mentioned during the course of this call Agile and ITSM and ITIL, and I think I mentioned Jane and Lisa's background as ITSM Academy experts. And one of the reasons we really like this course at Ranger4 is because it does have a really good ops focus in it. We learn a lot about the relationship between DevOps and ITIL when we do this course, and that's very important for a lot of the customers that we work with that sometimes struggle with DevOps being perceived to be a bit fly-by-night and a bit cowboy, because the basic underpinning strategy around DevOps is to do things faster. Sometimes people jump to the conclusion that that might be at the cost of quality or the cost of control, which it absolutely shouldn't be. Actually, with DevOps, we're building more and more controls in all the time as we automate things. So we're making things faster and less risk averse at the same time. Then we'll spend some time looking at what a DevOps culture looks like and what DevOps cultures in other organizations look like and how we can change cultures. And then there's a small amount of homework in that first evening, which is basically just reviewing some of the study aids. So all the way through the course, we're keeping an eye on the fact that you will be sitting a certification at the end of the course, and that you need to be prepared for that. So we try and give you as much guidance as we can as what that exam is going to look like and the kind of questions that you're going to be asked in it. So day 2, we have a review of what we did the day before and a quick review of what we're going to cover in the second day. And we look at DevOps organisational considerations here. So we'll look at loads of different patterns and anti-patterns for organisational change. So I've already discussed the classic IT enterprise pattern of having the head of dev and head of ops reporting into different lines. We'll talk about how skill sets are often siloed within those teams as well. And we'll talk about how you can move from a project-based model to a product-based model and how to arrange people around that and how to handle things like product owners effectively heading up a development team and the challenges around that, particularly when those product owners may not have deep understanding of why we do things in an iterative manner and why it's important to release often and have speed in our pace of change. And then we'll talk about DevOps practices and things like the 3 ways in particular, which any of you who on the call have read the Phoenix Project, which is the novel about DevOps by Gene Kim, who I mentioned earlier on the Board of Regents. He had 2 co-authors on that book, Helen Beal and George Spafford. We recommend to everybody that we talk to about DevOps that they must read the Phoenix Project. It really helps explain the underpinning principles of why we're doing DevOps and how to do it. It's a novel, which makes it really readable, and it gives you kind of a practical real life situation of DevOps happening and how to get from one point to another. And a big part of it is the 3 ways. So my favourite character in the book is Eric, who is this kind of hippie guy that comes in and he's a bit spiritual, and he has this concept of the 3 ways, which is all about flow. It's about the theory of constraints and removing bottlenecks and having feedback loops and amplifying feedback loops and just making everything flow beautifully. After lunch on the second day, we will spend most of the afternoon actually talking about automation and tool chains and how various components fit together, various different vendors and open source opportunities out there, tool chains that we have experienced with our customers, where we've seen mistakes being made, where we see improvements. We're doing a lot of another consulting engagement that we offer actually is a DevOps toolchain review, which is a 3-day piece of work where we come in and specifically focus on what the toolchain looks like today, where it might be broken, where there might be gaps, where it's working well, and make recommendations on how to improve that and optimize it for true continuous delivery. What we're seeing at the moment is that a lot of people have started to build tool chains. DevOps has been a very grassrootsy movement in its original conception as a Twitter hashtag, but also how it has evolved in organisations that we work with. So it's normally 1 or 2 bright sparks that have heard of it and have an idea that they want to do something with it, but they might not be budget holders. So they tend to try and do things with quite constrained resources, which have obviously been further exacerbated by the recession that we have just been through globally. So there's a lot of open source bits of product that have been picked up, and bits of continuous delivery or DevOps toolchains have been built. So it's kind of like almost like a DevOps toolchain 2.0 phase that we're in at the moment, where people are wanting to take that toolchain and take the bits that work, replace the bits that don't, finish it off, and really get that end-to-end flow going. So lots of automation work on the afternoon of day 2, and then finishing off with adopting a DevOps culture. The cultural element is the most challenging part of DevOps in many respects. It can be the most difficult to change. It can be the most difficult to pin down what makes an atmosphere or a way of doing things amongst a group of humans. What makes that a culture, and how do we change individuals, because that's the only way to change an overall culture. So we aim to finish off hopefully inspiring everyone in the room that they are ready to go and make more change in the manner of DevOps in their organisations and take this forward. And then we'll finally do an exam review and get you ready for the exam. So the exam itself can be sat at the end of that day, or you can sit it later. You can download the full course outline, by the way, at Ranger4.com. So if you go to DevOps training, you'll see some buttons on there for that. So the exam itself, to gain certification, you need to pass this online exam. So it is online and it is proctored. So that means that you will switch your webcam on and you will show the examiner or the invigilator the room in which you're sitting, and they will effectively sit and watch you while you do the exam. It's not that freaky, don't worry, I've done it, and it sounds a bit weird to be watched, but you don't really notice. So it's online, it's 40 multiple choice questions, it's got a 65% pass mark, and you have 60 minutes to answer those questions. And that exam is delivered by this company, you can see their webpage there, PeopleCert. So it's all pretty well organised and they know how to do it. So typically what happens is we do the course, and during the course we will issue all of the learners with their vouchers to do the exam, and they will go away and do that exam in their own time at their own pace. Some people in the training courses have been asking if they could actually sit the exam as the kind of final component of the training course, so we're offering that as an alternative at the moment. So we're not going to make that mandatory, but we will give people the option. If it's a custom course, obviously you can decide whichever way you want, and we can invigilate the people that want to do it on the day and get you certified there and then. So who is this for? So this is kind of an important question, and particularly because when people in the market started talking about certifying people around DevOps, there were some people that weren't so comfortable with the concept of certifying people in DevOps, and I kind of refer to them as DevOps purists often, which is a bit unfair actually, because I'm probably a bit of a DevOps purist, but in my opinion, I've got customers asking for training and coming on training and finding it useful to sit in a room with a number of like-minded people and talk about DevOps and show that they have a certain level of understanding about these concepts and what to do with them. I think the worry from the market initially around this was that people might do this exam and then try and sell themselves as a DevOps consultant. And I think it's important to emphasize that this is a DevOps Foundation course. It's 2 days of training. So you won't be a DevOps expert at the end of it. You'll need to go and practice it more if you have been already, really to be able to call yourself more of a kind of DevOps expert. And I mentioned earlier that one of our customer colleagues, Jonathan from Hiscox, is also on the Board of Regents now. One of the things that Jonathan fed back when he initially looked at this course was that he felt there should be some follow-on levels for it. So I mentioned he's working on another module, which is the continuous delivery module, which will be coming out shortly. There's already a Agile Service Manager training course available also. So we're kind of building these series of training up so we can build mastery up in our customers and people that want to come along and do this course. So who is the course for? Individuals or organisations who are either new to DevOps or they perhaps want to have their skills and knowledge recognised, so they want to be certified, or organisations. So I talked earlier about a lot of the work that we're doing around DevOps transformations in organisations, and one of the key things in that being around cultural change, and it's very important often to kind of level everyone's knowledge. So everyone's been through the course, we've all learnt the same terms, we're all speaking the same language, we're all looking at it at the same angle. And it is very much for technical and business people. So this is a very big thing about DevOps, is that's quite a catchy, I guess it's quite sonorous. It's a word that sounds nice. More accurate might be biz DevOps or biz dev InfoSecOps, because it really is about flow of change from the idea through the IT systems into the world at large to your users to benefit from the amazing value that you are creating for them. So business people really should be involved in this as well. I mentioned one of the DevOps organizational patterns that we see a lot at kind of moving into agile teams and arranging around product, and the disadvantage or the challenge sometimes of that being that the product owners that often end up leading those teams often don't have technical backgrounds. So it's really important to involve those business people in these sort of discussions so that they understand why we're doing this and what we're hoping to achieve from it. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the tool chains that DevOps is often quite grassroots, quite bottom up. It's really important though for DevOps to work to have some executive sponsorship, whether that is mandating that everybody looks at it or releasing budget to be invested in organisational change projects or tooling implementation. It is bottom up and top down. So the next public schedule course is on October the 6th and 7th at the Training Centre at the Royal Exchange in London. You can book that online, or you'll get an email in the next few days from us and you can reply to that and book it, or you can go onto our website to the DevOps training section and book it there, or you can email either me, you have my email address at start, helen.beal@ranger4.com, or you can email DevOps training at ranger4.com. So that is the training and the certification. I can see I have a number of questions and comments actually. So starting with Felix, will we do the course in Hong Kong? So we don't have a public schedule course at the moment in Hong Kong. We'd be very happy to come to Hong Kong though and deliver that on site with you, or we could do it virtually, or we could do it blended. So Felix, we can maybe continue that conversation. Yes, and your next question there is yes, it can be done over the internet, and yes, we can make that happen at a time that works for you. It's not an online course in that you do need a trainer, so we would have to book the time with you to do it. And Felix, again, the cost is £1,000 per student, and that includes both the day's training or the 16 hours of training, depending on how you break it up, and also the courseware and also the certification, so the actual exam itself. That would need VAT, value-added tax added to it in the UK, but if we're doing it outside the UK, then VAT doesn't need to be added. Daniel has told me off for calling Eric a hippie. He is very spiritual. It's probably better description. Thanks, Daniel. And then the Felix again. So the toolchain course, I'm not quite sure what you're asking there. So I was talking about the automation section in the training on the second afternoon, which we talk about toolchains a lot. Again, that's part of the 16-hour course that is trainer led. So it's not an online course in that you kind of log in and do it whenever you feel like it. It does need to be scheduled with our trainers. If you're talking about the toolchain review that I mentioned, so the consulting that we do, the way that we do that is our consultants come on site and run a series of workshops with various teams and look at the actual toolchain that you've got working, and actually review the processes, the build processes and the release processes that you've got going on. And then do some documentation around what a future architecture would look like. So that does demand us being on site. Daniel, yes, absolutely, we do deliver the class in mainland Europe. So if that's a custom class, we can do that. We haven't got any public schedule today booked in any European countries, but we can come and do that. I can't remember where you're from, Daniel, but if you're still online and you want to put what country you were talking about, doesn't matter though, because we can go anywhere to do it. And Felix, you sound happy, so that's good. Oh, and you're in Romania. Yes, yeah, it's no problem. We can get to Romania. Thanks, Daniel. So just going to check the chat box to see if there's anything in there. No, there's nothing in there. And so I think that's all the questions have been asked. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time today. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will send over a recording of this and slides to you in the next few days. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.